Testing.
Hey, are you at Village Hall? Oh, I'm logged into the committee of the whole. The IT guy went over my computer today, said there's nothing wrong with it. It should work. So I talked to Steve and said, well, I'm going to log into the meeting tonight and I'm going to try to talk and see if you can hear me. I do. What do I do? I have to hit something because you don't hear me now, right? Oh, hello. You could hear me? Ooh, testing. 1, 2, 3. You heard me? Woohoo! Yay. Okay. It worked fine. Okay, here's the mute button. Does not give me an option to mute or unmute. Mute control.
That's for when they signed up for their
Oh, I see.
program, then they got a free toothbrush.
This board needs to have
And we got Jolene on.
I'm just,
I heard her testing earlier.
that might have been,
I think it was Jolene. It
Was it?
sounded like Jolene.
um, I'll pull it up here.
All right, we'll go. I'd like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting at the Committee of the Whole on Tuesday, October 8th at 6 PM in the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom, and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all Committee of the Whole members present except for Trustee Kaminsky, who is excused. And I believe that Trustee Pieper is joining us via WebEx. Is that correct? Okay. Then possibly be joining us via WebEx. That's what I thought I heard her, so. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from October 1st, 2024. You can see on the agenda, it says forthcoming, so we don't have them available yet, perhaps at the October 15th meeting. Next item is new business, starts with new business item A, departments review, but before we get into those, we can have Matthew Uselding kind of give us an overview of where we're at, what was changed, if anything, from the last couple of Committee of the Whole meetings, and then you can start rolling into each of the departments, starting with number one.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. So tonight we're on the third of 4 Committee of the Whole meetings. Tonight we're going to go over the remaining general fund departments, mostly the departments here at Village Hall, administration, IT, clerk, treasurer, finance, community development. For those of you who were able to join in for the information session earlier, you would have saw a pie graph that showed, the amount of levy support by department. And if you look at all the departments here in Village Hall, the overall levy support is about 15% of our general fund levy. The remaining 85% goes to police, fire, and DPW. So this is really the smaller departments within the village's overall budget. There'll be one final Committee of the Whole meeting next Tuesday. There we will go over the special revenue funds, the capital projects, the TIDs, and then any outstanding items that the village board would like to discuss as relates to the 2025 budget. Following that, there'll be a public hearing in November and formal budget and levy adoption as well. And with that, unless there's any questions right away, I'm going to jump into some of the department budgets.
Okay, we can start with number one with non-departmental.
All right, there we go. So non-departmental, this is where all the tax revenue is budgeted for. You'll see the largest portion is taxes at 14.14 million. This includes more than just property taxes. It also includes payments in lieu of taxes, as well as some other special hotel motel taxes and things like that. That is where those revenues are budgeted. In addition, there's a multitude of intergovernmental revenues that aren't necessarily tied to any direct department. That includes, that includes things such as computer exemption aid, state shared revenue, and other revenues we receive from the state. Overall, we're projecting the change to increase non-departmental revenues. If you look in the taxes, that's largely driven by an increase in property taxes. About 1.7 million of that is due to property tax levy. On the intergovernmental revenue side, we're projecting about $240 increase in intergovernmental revenue. Part of it is state aid, and part of it is state shared revenue, or state shared revenue and state transportation aid. On the non-departmental side, the expenses are significantly decreased compared to the 2024 adopted budget. This is largely driven by an increase in the vacancy and turnover number that the villages use to kind of buy down the levy. We're projecting a rather large increase in the vacancy and turnover amount just because we're expecting, with the addition of the 10 firefighters and 4 police officers, we're not expecting to fill all those positions throughout the year. So we wanted to kind of buy down the levy, knowing that there's going to be some fluctuation there. The biggest portion of the non-departmental budget is the non-union performance bonus of about 3%, and that's about $160,000 annually. That includes salaries and benefits. And like I mentioned, the vacancy and turnover number in the 2025 budget is significantly higher than the last couple of years, just with the increase in overall staffing. We wanted to make sure that we're not over budgeting for those positions.
Like normal, sure. We're starting with number one.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, on the expenses side? Oh, what I did is I backed out the transfer from the general fund to the capital fund. In 2023, correct. If you recall, the village board funded capital project with general fund reserves. That's where that expense would be. I backed it out of these numbers for that reason. In the 25 recommended budget? Nope, there's a decrease. So this is where we typically budget for village hall utilities. Budget salary increases in here. Their increases are some smaller non-departmental. By example, each department doesn't necessarily buy their own supplies. All those expenses get charged here.
But it seems like most of these departments have supplies, some sort of office thing or supplies like.
Yeah, they do have some general supplies and expenses, but typically if we're purchasing large amounts of paper or things like that, we don't have each department do it themselves. We just buy it in bulk and we charge it to non-departmental.
Is that what you're thinking? Next to.
Nope. We're planning on having each department still manage their own contracts and charge them to their own accounts. And departmental is kind of a catch-all for general fund expenses.
Other questions? Other questions? Go to village board.
Here you can see, I tried to do for each department, the levy support. For non-departmental, I didn't because all the levy is budgeted there. Village board is fully supported, or the village board budget is fully supported by the tax levy at about $136,000 annually. Slight increase over the 2024 adopted budget. The only change on the village board expense side is the operating expenses increased by about $2,000. That is largely driven by just the increased cost of some of the memberships for the village board, specifically the League of Municipalities costs have gone up, as well as the Mid-Moraine, the Moraine Municipal Association.
So these are obviously annual amounts and the increase is almost $2,000. So annually, both of those places raised about $1,000 a piece annually?
No, we're probably a little low in the 2024 adopted budget. If you look at the year-to-date actual for 2024, we're probably over what we'd budgeted for those.
So the increases happened last year.
Correct.
Do you know how much they increased by for those two departments?
I can grab it
those two
for
things?
2024. I don't know what it is for 2025 yet.
So it might even go up more for 2025.
I'd be surprised. They typically don't go up terribly much year over year, but I can get the numbers certainly from the league for 2025, and I definitely have the numbers for 2024.
So if they don't go up terribly, then how come they raised $2,000 per year? That just seems like a crazy amount to raise dues when we're only spending, I mean, if you cut it in half. So we were paying like $4,000 a year to each of these, but now we're paying $5,000 a year. I just don't remember historically that this happening.
So the league membership is actually a little bit more. It's probably 8 or 9,000 a year for the league membership. And the mid-Moraine, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. That's probably closer to 3 or 4,000.
So you don't remember which one raised, like dramatically?
I know as the league went up, I don't recall the increase for the mid-Moraine off the top of my head.
Okay, and if we don't join the league, what happens?
What happens? I mean, they're a valuable resource that we go to. They advocate on behalf of municipalities. Is it the end of the world if we're not in it? No. But you know, staff annually attends their conferences and seminars to stay up to date on state legislation.
How much of staff?
How much of staff?
Yeah,
I know I went to conference not in 24, but in 23. I can't speak to what was done before that. I know I've gone once. I don't know all the other staff that have gone, but I do know the administrator attends their weekly meetings via Zoom, and I'll attend occasionally as well. We annually get reached out by some of their folks just for state legislation issues. Is it the end of the world if the village is not in it? No. Is it the end of the world if all the villages stop doing it? That'd be more detrimental to municipalities than joining it. And if you'd like, I can get you those annual costs.
that'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions for Village Board? Trustee Hudson?
When is the last time village trustee and president's salaries
2009.
or stipends were
2009.
I believe it was 2009.
adjusted in the negative direction? See, that's why you don't answer questions before I'm done asking them.
I assumed it was the other way.
Uh-huh. So 2009. So thank you. And in 2009, did we have as many unopposed candidates as we have today?
I was in 8th grade. I'm not quite sure.
Matthew, this line of questioning is not directed towards you. Thank you. I appreciate your willingness to jump in and answer, though.
If my memory serves me, there were always some positions that were open and unopposed. I remember some in District 2. I remember some in District 3 back then. But more than likely, a lot of the other positions as they came up were opposed positions for trustees in 4, 3, others in 2, and definitely in 1.
And have we done, as we have done with many of the positions within the village, have we looked at what those around us are doing for comparable stipends for elected officials?
I know that we haven't directed staff to do anything in that fashion. In most cases, this board has found it difficult to bring that topic forward, to provide yourself a raise. And normally you're not providing yourself a raise, you're really providing whoever is elected to your seat the next time that increase. It doesn't go automatically.
Yeah. And I guess why I ask these questions is in my opinion, we have a dearth of interest in the village board and potentially fielding candidates. Following the law of supply and demand, it obviously leads me to ask the question, is our stipend set artificially low? So nobody wants to bother with the effort. I know if the attorney were here, we would know what they were doing in Mequon.
Hmm. I don't know, Steve, if you have any input or information in regards to what other communities might be offering a stipend for village officials or village board members or
Hey, there they go. You know, I can say that, just anecdotally, I have seen a trend in the past 2 years of communities reviewing and upgrading the salaries for elected officials. And it wouldn't be difficult for me to put together some information on how Village of Germantown elected officials' salaries compared with other communities. That's something actually like the League of Municipalities has available and some other organizations. So we could get that together and present that to the board. And for what it is worth, I think one of the reasons that we are seeing more communities do that is because it is becoming more difficult to get competitive races and to find people who are willing to take the jobs that you all have. That there's a lot of hours involved and a lot of work that goes into it, and it's becoming more of a challenge to find people who are willing to do that.
And so I guess I would make a couple of asks and then I have a comment. So I'd like to know what some of the stipends are in the communities surrounding us. The other thing I'd like to know is what are the size of the boards? So I'm not necessarily, maybe our board is too big and our pay is too little. And I want to be very clear before I start getting emails. I am not advocating for a stipend increase for the village board. I'm advocating that we gain the knowledge to make an intelligent decision to see where we are. Maybe action is appropriate in 2025, but I think we should start looking at this. Thank you.
So your direction is for staff to do some research?
My humble ask.
Okay.
Is for staff. Yes.
Okay. Other questions for village board? Trustee Pieper?
What was the increase in 2009?
I don't remember.
I know. Are you being serious? No.
I don't. David, do you have any recollection?
3%.
There's 3%.
It was tied to the general employees increase. Whatever the employees got, ours matched theirs. So we did not increase our income. It just got set when we approved.
And so was that a one-time 2009 raise or was it tied to the employees for a period of?
Prior to 09, it was tied to the employees. Whenever the employees got raises, the board got a raise. Because at one time, we were only doing $4,000. Now we're what, $1,000?
It's like 5,000.
Then we got the computer stipend, which gives you a different number.
Through the research, you can probably. find
Yeah.
what
And
that is.
I want to be clear, I'm not looking for any action for the 2025 budget, but to gain knowledge so we can take appropriate action in fall of 26.
Okay,
Thank you.
trustee Cutts?
Well, I was just gonna say that as a new member this year, I did not even think about salary when I ran. I didn't know what it was or anything about it, so that didn't even play into my decision. So I don't know how many people would even be aware of that. Just a comment.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else for village board? Trustee Chan Miller?
I sorry.
I see we have a couple of other line items here, and the one I just wanted to check was legal services. So we, in 2023, it was 107,000, and we went back to a budget of 60. And we're at, what would you say we're at for this year? Looks more like 50 to me, but we keep writing 60. Is that accurate?
Yeah, certainly over the last several budget years, the legal services have been budgeted at 60. Some years they've gone over, some years they've gone under, but it averages out to about $60,000 a year.
Okay. And then what equipment do we even possess that we have a line item for? Equipment? Got $100. I mean, it's not a lot, but I'm curious. and communication and employee recognition. Those three.
Hold it up over there. So for the village board communication, that's typically a lot of the equipment and stuff to do with Channel 25. That stuff, those expenses get charged there.
Okay.
You'll look in 23, significantly higher. That's because the village board had approved, it was $10,000 for some project related to Channel 25. Typically, those expenses get charged to that line item.
Okay.
As it relates to the employee recognition, I'd probably pass that one to the administrator or to the support services manager. I'm not exactly sure what all goes into that line item.
You know, I believe the one thing that comes to mind is occasionally when a long-term employee retires, the village board presents that individual the plaque. For example, I think some of the trustees that have retired have been presented with a plaque. But there's some of those things. There have been some not necessarily a plaque, but a parchment certificate that's been prepared and framed for some employees. So it's minor
Proclamations.
things like that, commendations,
Proclamation.
proclamations that are made, those things. I don't think it amounts to a great deal, but a few items like along those
Like
lines.
Eagle Scouts or other people that we've recognized for what they brought. When we go to the chamber event, that we pass out plaques there as well for each of the different departments that have won, was Member of the Year, Business of the Year,
Okay.
Charitable Organization of the Year.
It's for the community.
Yeah,
Mhm.
my daughter,
Both, and it's kind of both.
Right, right.
my daughter has one for their Girl Scout troop efforts at the senior center. They were all presented with a plaque from the village board.
Outstanding. Thanks.
Mhm. Other questions? Trustee Peeper?
Are we able to go back to the general fund expenses for the village board? Is that okay? I just have a couple questions.
Yeah, I think we're still there.
We're still there?
Oh, okay. Well, the communication, is that mailings?
That's typically things to do with Channel 25 or equipment in here.
Postage.
So we pay to broadcast that?
No, there's no payment for broadcasting, but there are occasionally expenses related to the maintenance of the equipment or
Okay. And then the professional development is for,
That's typically for trustees who attend Mid-Moraine Municipal Dinner or some other local.
see, I haven't been attending because I was told the village board doesn't pay for it anymore. Or the village doesn't pay for it anymore.
Historically, they have paid for the dinners.
You mean, are you thinking of the chamber event?
Yes.
Okay, because the chamber dinners are monthly.
Or no, the one that they have every year at the Old Quilted Bear.
Yeah, that's a chamber event, the recognition of chamber member of the year.
Yeah, that's once a year.
Or once a year, yeah.
So other than that, that's all this includes is professional development?
No, there's mid-moraine dinners that happen in different types of the different communities within the county. So Jackson will support one and will be in Jackson, and then in Newburgh will support one, or
Who
Kewaskum.
goes to those?
Jan goes to them pretty regularly.
Dennis used to go, so.
I didn't even know they existed. How interesting.
Yeah, they happen every couple months.
Sometimes we hold.
Anybody else on this board gone to any of these dinners?
Oh,
You, like this year?
This year, no. Oh, I've been to them before.
This year?
I go all the time.
So the 2024 actual, the 2,100, or I'm sorry, The $69. How many get, okay,
They're not that expensive. I think it's $30.
Okay.
A plate.
You're our representative, right? Yes.
Yes.
Designated representative for Mid-Marine. We voted for her to be there.
and then the office supplies are. I know I'm being nitpicky, but this is like, my expenses for the village board, so I'm wondering what expense I'm,
I'm looking at that, I'm thinking that that might be
Just
printing, there is a code, for example, when we print things out for the village board, there's a code that we put into the machine that relates to this budget. And I'm speculating a little bit, but I'd be fairly confident that that is related to the paper and the printing expenses for things at the village board.
so then what would general supplies and expenses, like how? It seems weird to me that there's two different line items.
just split that across multiple.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the departmental budgets, there's two lines. There's general fund or sorry, let me just read it. So it's in office supplies and general supplies and expenses. Could they be one expense code? Probably. But the GL was set up in the way where they've historically been two separate.
What supplies and expenses are we occurring?
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, like what? I know I don't ask for any. Maybe I'm being nitpicky, but I'm genuinely curious. I don't know what my expenses are year to year being on this board. Or even what is available to me.
We've obviously missed the dinners.
Well, I didn't even know they existed.
In most cases, there's an overall expense for copiers and, maintenance of internal
Copiers for,
operator systems that are just
Paper
spread
and ink
across
doesn't-
multiple departments.
but if we are not the one driving the expense, then why is it on our expenses?
It's spread across all.
But that is, if we are not causing the expense, why is it in our budget? We are not causing this expense,
How do you know?
other than some ink and paper.
Do we have copier leases?
No, that copier's been sitting back there ever since I
Copiers
started.
Existent within the inventory.
I've even asked to like print things out, like, a lot of pages that I don't want to print out at my home printer. And I was told pretty much no, so. Other than this budget report,
Oh, there you
I don't know what else I've ever printed out here.
go. Buck a page. I mean,
A buck a page? Where are you buying, are you cutting down those trees from the Amish or something?
yeah, more likely it's just expenses that are spread across all.
More than likely is not
And
a real answer.
So looking at the general supplies and expenses, that is largely driven by the computer stipend that the village board gets for electronic services.
That is once every 4 years, 3 years? The computer stipend?
No, there's a
In the
portion that,
election year,
Yeah, you get it once
more
every,
people got it this year,
so,
$600.
and it, are you sure it's $600?
$3 a piece.
What? It's not $600.
It's 300.
Yeah, so
I was
if
trying to raise
3
it.
people got it and it's $300 a piece, then it'd be $900. So,
Sure, it's 600.
no, it's not. I didn't get 600. If you got 600, we need to talk.
Didn't get it at all.
I didn't get it until I asked for it.
You got mine.
Anyways,
No, not anyways. I want to know what is driving this $9,000, 600 line item.
fine. We'll
When
get-
in
you'll have to get back
2024,
to
we
you.
only
If
spent
you're looking for it
2,400.
To be spelled out line for line, then Matthew will have to get back for you. He doesn't have that answer for you right now.
But can't they look it up right now?
No. He'll get back to you. Anything else for Village Board? Trustee Chan Miller?
I would like to make a point that in other departments, there is usually professional development. And in some areas, it's like 2,000. And I think that one of the goals should be professional development. And I don't know why we would ever deny somebody that wants to go to one of the League of Municipalities, one of their sessions, because they have an annual meeting and there's a cost to it. And why we wouldn't reimburse it. So if, I'm just saying, if we don't need that in further evaluation, that trustee Pieper brought up, the general supplies, if we're not going to use the 9,600, could we put 2,000 into professional development and make a list of the programs that the League of Municipalities and Mid-Moraine have? And there are other associations that can help us. And even Ellers puts on a presentation, and they have meetings as well. And I attended that. And I paid,
Free.
no, they're not,
No.
not all of them.
There's a ton of resources that are free. And between our two subscriptions, I don't think we need to incur any more debt or
I think
subscriptions.
Trustee Miller is referencing to is some of the conferences that are held around the state of Wisconsin that
Right.
each of those different groups may hold.
Right.
Some down in Milwaukee and like at Italian Community Center, some in Mequon, some even as far as the Dells, depending on who they are and what their presentations are.
I attended an Ellers presentation. It was a 2-day seminar, and I only went one day, but I paid. And I think that it just means that it allows us to do a little bit more if we have the time or so inclined.
Well, and that's not a bad idea, and I don't think a lot of people disagree with that, but I would like to see the 9,600 broken down first to make sure we're not taking
Absolutely.
something away.
I
And then
agree.
once we determine what that is, we can make those kind of decisions, through motions to reset the amount of money that's being designated for expenses into different departments.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Trustee Hudson.
I would just like to say there are those of us on this board that view the money we get as a stipend. We are not employees. We do not get an hourly wage for doing this. Those monies should be paid for out of the stipend we get. We can certainly argue that the stipend is too low. I think I did. But benefits and professional development, that's employees, and we are not employees, or at least I don't view us as employees. The stipend, it's not a wage.
If I could just add
Mhm.
on to the general supplies and expense line. So to make it more confusing, so the trustees get, I'm not gonna use the word stipend, I'm gonna use it for something else. They get an annual salary that is paid out bi-weekly. In addition to that, you get a $100 stipend added on to your check every month.
Right.
That $100 is allocated to the general supplies and expense line. That is to reimburse for mileage and travel expenses. That is why when I look into that line, it says payroll expense. That's because we're adding the $100 stipend to reimburse you for mileage and travel expenses. So that's what that 9,600 is. If you look at the 2023 number, it was $9,240.
So then why is the 2024 actual so low?
That's a great question. I'm gonna have to look and see where that has been allocated to, because it looked like in the beginning of the year it was allocated to that line, and now it hasn't shown up.
And
the
it
last
looks like
couple
we're
days.
gonna go over for salaries.
I bet it got moved in when we switched payroll systems in April. I bet it moved to that salary line. So we'll have to do
That
a
would
journal
make
entry to
sense.
to fix that. But that's what that 9,600 is budgeted for. It's $100 stipend. I just had to go back to an old email to figure out what was going on there.
Further questions for village board? Thank you, Matthew. Trustee Peeper,
I might have been looking through the papers, but what was the employee recognition expense? You may have already answered it. I'm sorry if,
That's things like, plaques when people retire, commendations. I think it goes beyond employees. So it could be, for example, for the awards that are given to,
but then it shouldn't be under the village board general expense.
well, the village board makes those awards
present them
and presents them.
as proclamations.
So it's mostly like plaques and such for
Then-
when things are given away.
Yeah.
And then the insurance and bonds, do we have insurance through the village board?
We have insurance for things that we might say and that get sued for. People
I'm
can
surprised
take
we
this-
haven't already been sued for what I
we got
say.
Insurance for that? No, we are insured for those types of
Okay.
things.
Is that the only thing we're insured for is,
There's no life insurance.
no, we don't have life insurance.
Those insurance and bonds are like in all the other departments are workers' comp, property insurance, other types of insurance that the village has that get allocated across the different departments, which reminds me, I still owe you a spreadsheet regarding that. But that's what those insurance and bonds are.
Okay. And the communication is website?
No, a lot of that is related to, a portion is related to Channel 25 and some of the expenditures related to that.
To fixing the issues. So who do we pay that expense to for communication? Sorry, guys, I just really want to know what we're spending money on, like us right here.
I didn't look in 2023 just because I recall there was a $10,000 contract that the village board approved to fix Channel 25. In 2024, most of those expenditures, almost all of them are actually related to having someone staff the back room during board meetings.
We pay that.
But I believe that's on a different one. That's under IT, because I do see that we pay salary and wages to IT. So that
There
can't
couldn't have
be,
been any in 2024. If so, it's probably a journal entry that I need to do.
in 2023 we did. So there's nothing for 2024. So
Let's see.
2154.
I think Aaron might be able to shed some light on this too.
Hi, Aaron, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, so most of it is Brenton's time that he spends back there, but we also pay Global Sight and Sound $1,500 to twice a year come here to look over the equipment in the back, make sure everything's functioning properly and things of that nature. So those are the two costs. So Brenton's time and then Global Sight and Sound.
So it's not a monthly amount to Global Sight and Sound.
No, no,
So
no, it's just an annual cost. And then they do come here when we have issues to review the problem that's at hand, so.
okay, so if I take the $2,000, 2,154, and then you take away the $1,500 for Global Sight and Sound, then that would be $654. 20 bucks off. All right, I'm good.
Other questions for village board? Trustee Warren, do you have your hand up? Oh, sorry. There's nothing else. We can go to administration. Matthew?
Much like the village board, the administration department is fully levy supported, roughly $177,000 annually. The major driver of expenses within the administration department are salaries and wages, making up about 120,000 of that $177,000. Overall, excuse me. Overall expenses went up about 10,000, or projected to go up about $10,000, 6% over the 2024 adopted budget. It's largely driven by salary and benefit increases. And much like the village board, the cost of some of the associated memberships has gone up slightly compared to 2024. And within the administration department, you have the village administrator and the support services manager.
Questions? Trustee Jan Miller?
My question is, we have two people in this department, and the salary is going down, correct?
No, the salary is up about,
7, okay,
yeah, about 7%.
okay, but this is not the full salary for 2 people.
Correct. Both of these individuals are allocated across other funds as they serve functions in the water utility, the sewer utility, and in the case of the administrator, also the tax increment districts.
And then, so the change is about 7. Don't we have a 3%?
That is correct. That is not accounted into these increases. 3% is budgeted in the non-departmental budget.
So these are just increases? I don't understand. Question.
Yep, so it's just based on what the budgeted salaries were in 2024 to the budgeted salaries in 2025 and reflects any changes throughout, 2024. If there were increases in the middle of the year, beginning of the year, that is reflected in the 2025 budget.
Okay.
May I help you on this one?
Yes, please.
Which people are in this account?
The village administrator and the support services manager.
Did either of them get a pay raise mid-year?
We gave him one.
There's where you didn't go 3%, you went higher than 3%, and that's why it's 6%, not just 3% raise.
Right, we
Because
gave
we
him a
gave-
higher increase.
Gave him a higher increase because of his job performance.
And well, he's getting recruited.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why 6% and not, you are looking for is a 3% increase that we did for
Right.
everybody.
Right. Checks and balances.
Mm-hmm. Other questions, Trustee Jan Miller?
Yes, so there is administrative professional development, and apparently year-to-date, they only used $361 out of budgeted $2,000. So is that going to be going down every year?
No, I can, I can answer this one. No, usually the things that we spend most of that money on out of this budget occur later in the year. The 2 things that I've done with the professional development money is I will usually purchase a table for village staff at the Wisconsin Policy Forum's awards luncheon that occurs in the fall. And then I didn't do it last year because I was out of town, but then I've purchased a table at the Chamber of Commerce awards dinner here and invited staff to to participate in that.
Okay, and then there's a line for wellness program. And it's but we don't have any recommendation for you.
That funding for the wellness contract was included in the employee benefits budget this year.
It's out of here.
Yeah, we're still doing the wellness program. We just felt it was more appropriate to budget for it in the employee benefits budget
I
instead of the
think that's a good
administrative
idea.
budget.
What about your equipment? A couple of years ago, it was 17,000, now it's vanished. So is that,
I, I think, and we'd have to go back and check the records from 23. There may have been some equipment purchased as part of the Tyler Munis implementation that was charged to that line. I don't know. We'd have to go back.
I'd have to go back and look. I'm not sure what that
Wait.
was in 23.
you don't need any equipment this year?
No.
Okay, and now this copy machine has gone someplace else. And now but your postage is back. You don't have any spending this year, but you've got it for next year.
Let me take a look. No, so the copy machine, correct, there's no budget for the copy machine. The annual for the postage is about 1,000. And the year-to-date shows 0 because we have to allocate that out at the end of the year.
Oh.
So the 2024 budget for postage was was 1,000. The 2025 budget amount for postage was 1,000.
Right. But you're not getting charged for copying anymore.
I
Where'd they
believe
go?
that was a copy machine lease. I think that was a lease that was allocated out.
But we're still leasing, aren't we?
Correct, but
Yeah.
all that is budgeted in the IT department.
Oh, it's in IT. Okay, thanks.
A portion of it's budgeted in the IT. The library pays for a portion, DPW pays for a portion.
What?
Copier lease?
Copy of release. Further questions for administration?
Why would they pay for a copier?
The IT department, that's just where we budget the portion of the lease for this building.
What does it have to do with copying IT? Like, what does IT have to do with
They just manage that lease. They manage the lease. That's why it's budgeted.
the IT company does?
No, the IT department. Our IT department. Our IT department in the budget,
In the back.
which will be coming up next.
I still,
Questions for administration?
what is that even?
No other questions for administration? We again can go to information technology. Matthew?
The IT department is fully supported by the tax levy at about $242,000 annually. It remained flat for the 2025 recommended budget. Overall, there's about $170 increase in operating supplies and expenses for the IT department. There are no major changes in the IT department.
Questions? Trustee Jolene Pieper.
Insurance and bonds under this one. So they carry their own insurance.
Again, this is workers' comp, property insurance.
They have their own workers.
Correct. This is not related to any contract with an IT provider, for in this case, Capital Data. This is just the village IT department as
What's the village IT department?
the support services manager manages that department.
Who?
This
Aaron. So Aaron's responsible for multiple different things. She,
Then shouldn't her salary be, a
Portion
portion of it be under IT regular salaries and wages?
It certainly could. The reason we decided not to is it's all within the general fund and still flows to the same bottom line. And it would just be a percent allocation.
So there are multiple places that we are writing checks each year to under this expense account, correct?
Yeah, so the largest one is the IT maintenance, and that's where we budget expenses related to annual costs for Tyler Munis, for capital data, and some other smaller providers of different things. Yes.
So then where does this telephone come in and why is it going up?
That was just a mistake on my part. If you look at the IT maintenance and telephone lines, I allocated them incorrectly in 24, so I adjusted that for 25. The overall budget remains flat. It's just a reallocation within the two lines.
Wait, I'm very confused. Why is there an IT telephone?
That's where we budget some of the like Crescendo, which we got this year, which is our telephone provider, like our desk phones.
But shouldn't that be, again, not under IT and be under administrative or general expense?
It's under IT because the IT department manages that contract.
That doesn't make sense. And then who's doing our website maintenance? And what are they exactly doing each month? Because our website still stinks.
Okay, so our website is handled by Civic Plus.
Civic Plus.
They are the host of our website. So the people who manage the website are the employees. So myself, as well as other employees, we manage
Making
our
the
pages.
changes to the website yourself.
Yes.
So we don't have anybody. How much is the hosting versus?
The hosting is a little over $12,000 a year. And that's for hosting our DNS as well as maintaining and providing security for our website.
$1,000 a year?
Yes.
That's excessive and needs to be looked into. Big time. That is unheard of. So then the remaining amount, so we have another $8,000 on top of that $12,000 that we're budgeting for this year or for 2025?
Well, we have different items too. So we have Civic Clerk, we have Muni Code, we have different items too on top of just the website. So it's, yeah,
Payment services.
So then it shouldn't be under website maintenance.
it's part of our website. It's just different.
So we manage the MuniCode website as well.
We don't manage it. We pay for their services.
Pay for the
to
hosted
manage.
services, but
Yes.
who actually makes the changes to it?
No, they make the changes to our Muni Code.
Civic Plus does.
Yes.
But if you're making changes to our website, why can't you make them to our Unicode?
I don't have
website?
access to that. That's a different, that's not the same portal. Just like, it's kind of like the background, I don't put the website together. I don't, manage, the flow of the website. I manage the pages. Like I can change the pages, but I don't have access to changing every single aspect of the website. There's a lot that goes into a website besides just, the background code on one page. So.
Fill in cells and then upload it to them and then they filter it in. I mean, if you're gonna make a change to a page, aren't you just kind of filling the cells of where it is and then
Exactly.
upload it to them and then they
Exactly.
then integrate it into the page?
So Civic
Well-
Plus is making it.
No. No, so they've put together these, I'm sorry, I feel like we're going really deep into this, but, yeah, exactly, thank you. And so with MuniCode, we send them the, new ordinances that they need to place into MuniCode, and then they do the formatting and functionality of it.
And
So-
update the database so it can be searched.
Exactly.
Do I need to make a motion to move some funding around?
Put around to where?
Well, like the copy machine, I do not believe should be placed under,
What difference? It's
Informa-
all part of general
So-
fund. You're just
Because it-
switching it as a percentage takeout. What difference? It's still gonna go somewhere else and be the same amount that's gonna come out.
really, because if I look at our last year's, that's not how it was. I have last year's books right here if you would like me to show you.
No, I'm not really looking at last year's budget. I'm looking at next year's budget.
I know, but like the numbers aren't adding up is what I'm telling you.
Can I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we decided last year to take all of those funds for the phone, because we were reviewing what we had in place and we were reviewing solutions for that. And so when we were doing that, instead of having it distributed into the different departments, we had it all in IT so that we could manage it more clearly to see exactly how much it is instead of having it distributed to the other funds.
Then
So
that
that's-
should have been the
that's what
change for
we-
last year. That changed last year.
No, it changed for this year.
You had a question about it last year.
So if it changed for this year, an IT phone went up by, sorry, let's see, 113%. How come I'm not seeing the change again in the other departments coming down?
Other
The
increases in
change
other-
this year is I budgeted a portion of that contract in IT maintenance incorrectly for 2024. So if you look at the overall IT budget in 2025, it's a net wash. There's no change in the budget. It's just the change between those three lines. There's no increase to the IT budget. There's
Yeah, I know,
169.
I do understand that, but if I'm looking at, last year, this is same place. Last year, the copy machine went up by 2,300%. Consolidated copier expense.
Because it all got
But
consolidated.
now it's going up
Position.
again by 33%.
Correct. I budgeted incorrectly in the IT department. There was a portion of those contracts in the IT maintenance line. So if you look at the 2025 IT maintenance line, it is decreasing significantly and being reallocated to the telephone line and to the copier line. But they net out to zero. And if you'd like, the support services manager and I can certainly provide contracts that are related to those lines if you'd like a closer look at that.
Yes, if you could, please.
Other questions for IT department? Trustee Chan Miller.
You said in IT maintenance that it's Capital Data and Tyler Munis. So is are we still paying Tyler Munis like an annual fee? It used to be $1.25, or I mean, 125,000,
Correct.
something like that.
Yep.
Is
Yep.
that what's in here?
Yep. There's still the annual maintenance fee for Tyler Munis.
Okay. And then is Capital Data on the same type of payment plan? I mean, is it as needed or is it a flat fee?
So they have both. So they have a flat fee that's for more of our network working services.
Okay.
And then they have a monthly fee, usage fee, which is based on the amount of use we.
Right. Okay.
Can I see how much we actually paid only Capital Data last year and this year so far?
Yeah, I can provide that.
Thank you.
And then I just have another quick question. The website maintenance, does that include this upgrade that was?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
And it's supposed to be free.
it is free. I mean, it's part of and it's every 4 years. We
Okay.
get it every 4 years with this contract.
Okay. But
You're on a
but we
month-to-month
do
one.
have an increase on that.
Not for our website.
Oh, not for the website.
No, I'm sorry. What was your question?
On that website maintenance, there's an increase for 2025. Does that include, is it more than just the Civic Plus then?
Well, Civic Plus, I haven't gotten the contract amount for 2025, but it generally raises like 2 to 5%
Oh.
annually. So, I'm sorry, not but last year, I think it was, or maybe it was the year before, I gave you guys all a graph of like the increase and how it's increased over the years that we've had it. So that may be the increase. Otherwise, we did add on Civic Clerk. So that's another cost that's on there.
Okay, so that's probably what it is, because I knew that Civic Plus was free. Great, thanks.
So
Other questions for IT department?
real quick, so if you're doing the website maintenance and part of your salary is included in this line item, then shouldn't that also be under regular wages and salaries again?
Her wages are not included under IT.
Well, she said part of the cost for website maintenance was her position.
That's through the website provider.
You
There could
clarify.
be an argument to be made that a portion of the support services manager salary should be allocated to this department. The reason it's not is because it's still within the general fund and all flows down to the same bottom line. The reason that our salaries are allocated differently is because other funds and have other dedicated revenues besides property taxes to pay for them. That's why we allocate the salaries out. In this case, we didn't because it's all within the general fund.
Okay.
There's certainly an argument to be made that it could be that way.
Any other questions for IT? All right, let's go to the village clerk.
So the village, excuse me, the village clerk's department is largely supported by the tax levy. For the 2025 recommended budget, that's about $233,000. On the revenue side, we're projecting just minor increases to the overall revenues within the clerk's department. That's mostly driven by some changes in state legislation as relates to operator licenses. There's now folks can go directly to the state to pay for those or to obtain those licenses. And so we're expecting decreases in those types of revenues. On the expense side, there's not a presidential election in 2025. So we're projecting major decreases in election-related expenses, including poll workers and other operating expenses related to elections, for an overall decrease in expenses of about $92,000. Summarized there, a decrease in projected election workers and decrease in projected election-related expenses. The clerk's department is staffed by a village clerk and 2 deputy clerks, and then not including all the poll workers that help them out throughout the year.
Anything to add, Donna?
You do a great job. You're very detailed and I appreciate it.
Any questions for village clerk? Trustee Jan Miller?
Are the, okay, I found it. The election workers are on a separate line item, but you don't have any part-time people in your department, do you?
Both deputy clerks are full-time.
Right, okay.
Any other questions for village clerk department or clerk department? Jan, you still have the floor?
And then there's a major increase in the office supplies. Can you talk about that? It's about 300%.
Okay, let me find it on my spreadsheet, please.
It's about a third of the way down.
3, 1, 0, 1.
Do you
I
remember?
can answer that one.
And also just including the postage to stamp increase in addition to, I think we were calculating that out, but go ahead and I'll add on if there's anything.
So the increase related to the supplies and expenses, as Trustee Pieper pointed out, typically there's 2 general supplies and expense lines. There's office supplies and general supplies and expenses. The village clerk preferred if her budget just had 1 line. So the increase is offset by the decrease of the other. So there's just 1 general supplies and expense line.
But there's,
It was offset by which line?
I'm sorry. So the clerk's office supplies increased by 4,500. The clerk's general supplies and expense line decreased by
went down
4,500.
93.
She just wanted
Right.
1 expense line for those types of expenses.
Yeah,
Right above it.
Mhm.
okay,
Gotcha.
okay. And the election supplies and expenses went down because we don't have as many elections next year. It's along with the election workers. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Other questions? Trustee Hudson?
Why the drop in health insurance premium, please?
When we were creating the budget for the 2024 budget, had a vacant position, and so we budgeted a certain type of health insurance plan. Once that position was filled, that individual took a different health insurance plan.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Um,
Go ahead, trustee.
Matt, can you,
Go back to your top page that includes the salaries for clerk and okay, this doesn't match my printout. Do you have that combined with the election workers?
Correct.
Okay. You're making me think. Thanks.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
We then go to treasurer.
The treasurer's department is partially supported by levy support, about $81,000 in the 2025 recommended budget. Really the only revenues that are accredited to the treasurer's department are interest earnings on investments at about $169,000 annually. And you can see that here in the miscellaneous revenues. On the expense side, excuse me, the largest expense for the treasurer's department is salaries and benefits, totaling about $210,000 annually. On the operating side, the largest expense is typically the audit costs or costs associated with the audit.
Trustee Hudson?
23, accounting and audit of 66,724, accounting and audit of 39,125, recommended budget of $25,000.
That is correct. We are planning to get back on track to the normal audit process that was prior to, I'll say, post-COVID audits. Historically, we budgeted around $25,000 and came in right around there. We made significant improvements in 24, and we're expecting to be right on target for 25. I would have felt too guilty raising that up and not setting a high enough standard for myself. So
Thank you.
Other questions? Treasurer's department.
the treasurer's department is staffed by myself, our senior deputy treasurer, our accountant, our utility billing clerk, and our accounting clerk.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Are all of those spots filled?
Yes, we recently hired a new accounting clerk who will be starting on Monday.
Anything else for treasurer's department? Okay, we can go to community development.
Wait. Assessor's office. The municipal fee. Why, so we didn't spend anything year to date? Is that because it's paid towards the end of the year?
That's under a different department.
Well, I'm going in order of my book here.
Well, we're going in order of the agenda.
Where's the
Walter,
assessors then?
I believe I forgot to include the assessors in my presentation.
Okay.
Let me just pull it up here real quick. Let me take a look. Okay, you're looking at assessor municipal fee?
Yeah.
Yep, that is something we'll pay towards the end of the year here.
Okay, thank you.
And then the assessor's contracted services is the annual contract that we have with Associated Appraisals.
Yeah,
And I believe,
I was just wondering why the 2004 actual was nothing.
oh, yep,
So that
Yep.
made me think,
just
it's
based
towards the
on
end of the
timing
year.
of when
Gotcha.
to pay that fee. Otherwise, there's no change to the assessor's
Gotcha.
department. I apologize for not including that in my presentation.
Anything else? Now, community development.
All right. Community development is one of the few departments that is mostly offset by the revenues they generate. In 2025, the overall levy support is about $27,000 This is largely due to the projected decrease in expected revenues due to less projected development across the village. On the operating, I guess we'll focus on the revenues here. Here, I decided to list out all the revenues for the village board to see. And as you can see, we're projecting decreases in most of those revenues across the board, which will negatively impact the overall general fund by about $140,000 less in overall revenues than in 2024. On the operating side, you'll see a slight decrease in the services. This is mostly due to our contract with Safe Build and how those decrease in revenues also result in a decrease in expense as they get a portion of our overall revenue. So as revenues go up, those expenses go up, but as revenues go down, those expenses also go down. As mentioned here, the biggest change is the decrease in projected permit revenues. On the contracted services side, there are monies available for neighborhood plans as well as the overall Safe Build contract. The Community Development Department is staffed by the Community Development Director, the Associate Planner, and the Planning Assistant.
Did we go over planning and zoning in a previous?
Those are combined in this chart right here. That's
Yeah.
both planning and zoning and community development. If you'd like
Okay,
to
perfect.
discuss them separately, we certainly can. I just wanted an overall picture of community development.
Sure. So I was just wondering why the state retirement went up by 946 %. Did we have like a bunch of people retire that I didn't know about?
No. Let me just get there real quick. You're looking at planning and zoning?
Yeah.
Oh. The reason for that large.
Did you retire and you didn't tell us?
Not yet.
No, the reason for that increase is in the 24 budget. If you look at the 24 original, I dropped a 0 on the budgeted amount.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that'll do it.
Yep. So
Okay.
that's why you see the large increase there.
Were you retired?
Yikes.
Anything to add, Chuck?
Not at this point. I'm just ready to field some questions.
We got questions for community development?
Community development is on page, so inspection and permitting is on page 30 of the PDF, and planning and zoning is page 31.
What's the large drop in the contracted services on inspection and permitting? It's just because of you think there'll be less development?
Yes. The contract with Safe Built, they get a proportionate share of the total revenue. So when the revenue drops, our expenses for them drop as well.
Thank you.
Trustee Jan Miller?
And, pardon me, I know you're working really hard with Safe Build to put together a new program for 2025 or a new contracted percentage. What transpired and where are we at with them?
Yes, in the course of negotiating with them, they've agreed to change the proportionate share split of the revenues from like the current 45 to the village, 55 to Safe Built, and go to a 50-50 split if we do a couple of things. One, if we agree to increase our fees on a more regular basis annually, and to tie those fee increases to the consumer price index. And at this point, I think Matt's plan is to discuss that in more detail with GGF at their upcoming meeting.
Yep. So what the plan is, we're just trying to run on, what would that look like? What would the expected increase in revenue look like?
Sure.
So that is not included in the 2025 budget. Any projected increases are not included in this budget, just because we don't know what they would be yet. If we do bring it to, if those things do come to fruition towards the end of the year, we can include that in the 25 budget. We can amend the 25 budget to include those revenues. We just don't have those numbers yet.
Can we amend the budget at any point during the year?
Correct.
That's
Correct.
right. Yeah, so if it becomes a done deal and it's favorable, you can just,
Right. At this point, a rough estimate would be roughly
Okay.
$25,000 increase for a fee adjustment from 45 to 50. Using 2025 projected revenue numbers.
you're expecting an increase
I'm
of,
saying that if we do go to a new split to the 50-50 split, the additional revenue that the village might realize would be close to $20,000 to $25,000.
okay,
If the full revenue projections pan out for 2025.
even with the decrease in permits? Is
Yeah.
that factoring?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been some time since we changed the pricing on the permits, was that right?
The last fee increase went into effect January of 2023. At that time, we increased fees across the board from anywhere from 10 to 16%, depending on the category. And that fee increase was the last one for 6 years. So we've been doing it fairly irregularly, which is why Safe Built would prefer us to annually increase and tie it to consumer price index.
Sure. Just like people would rather have water increases annually. That's what I've been hearing. Anyway, well, that's great. Have you, when you do this permit increase, are you using a consultant, or are you using, are you going out to other municipalities and finding out what they're doing?
At this point, we will apply the CPI, and if necessary, we can check against other communities, but it is what it is, and we don't need a consultant to tell us what the fee increase
Right.
would be if we apply a simple percentage.
Okay, great.
Other questions for community development? Other questions? For community development? No other questions? Then we can go to municipal development. Thanks, Jeff.
But
Fireworks. Fourth of July.
Let me take a look there.
Where are we looking?
Planning and
We
zoning.
already went through Park and Rec.
No, this is under municipal
No.
development, President Walter.
We can talk nice to each other in this.
We sure can, can't we?
Or may I ask if the trustee's referring to the 24 actuals?
Correct?
That is this year, the village signed the contract, executed the contract for the fireworks. And we will be getting reimbursement from Celebrate Germantown for a portion of that dollar amount.
Celebrate Germantown. Do you know how much they're gonna reimburse for?
22 to 23.
Really? 22 to 23. They're gonna reimburse.
Where it's at.
If memory is serving, 22 to 06.
So then,
Is,
so then these numbers are wrong.
oh, because that would have been expensed, but there will be an offsetting revenue to cover that.
Okay. The economic development, we paid nothing in 2024. Is that again because it's paid at the end of the year? And is that 100% for EDC Washington County?
Yes,
It is?
yes.
Okay. I do not believe that we, like, I know the Economic Development Commission has barely used them at all this entire year. Very small amount in the beginning of the year, Are you able, so like we only get an invoice at the end of the year? We don't get like monthly statements or anything with them?
No, historically, I haven't received monthly invoices.
Okay, I make a
I'm not sure if
motion.
that's changing with E EDWC, but that's not how it historically has been.
Sure.
They do provide regular statements, and as they discussed at the meeting last night, whatever we don't use this year,
We'll
they
carry over, but
Yeah.
I'd like to see where the balance actually is.
Shown last night.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to remove that $10,000 budget item for 2025. I'd like to put it towards the 4th of July expenditures instead. I'd like to see a really, really big 4th of July in 2025. And maybe encourage more people to volunteer and help out for the event.
Motion made. It needs a second.
I'll second for discussion.
Made and seconded. Discussion.
I don't feel like we need EDC, Washington County right now for 2025.
I believe that you are, for all the services that they provide to us and all the information that we can get from them, there are other activities that they are involved with other companies within Germantown that help them to grow or to stay within Germantown that you may not be aware of or may be not directly communicated to village staff, but it still is occurring. For our $10,000 that we pay to Economic Development in Washington County, we have received 100-fold back in result,
Okay, so
along
I
with
know
all
they-
the recommendations that they did for you in regards to the Economic Development
Yes, we
Commission.
got
and
nowhere.
Helping to move you in a platform of a mission statement and a directive, and there was time spent there as well.
yeah, and it went nowhere, and I feel like that those funds were wasted, and I apologize that I was in charge of the committee at that time. I do. But I am wondering, is there a different tier? Because if I remember correctly, EDC has different tiers of amount of hours. So
15,000.
what is the one lower than what we're currently paying?
I can look that up. We're in the middle tier at this point.
For 100 hours?
Yeah, and it was actually in the presentation yesterday.
75 is the next tier? I make a motion, okay, I retract my, okay, sorry. Is it okay with my second that I retract that motion?
Yes.
Okay. Motion's gone. I'd like to make a new motion. I would like to have the EDC lowered to the next tier of 75 hours. And since we are at 66 hours this year, that would put us right on track.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
And then I'd like the funds to go to the 4th of July.
What fund?
Like the difference in the tiers, the cost for the two tiers.
What?
10,500 to versus 7,500.
Do you know what the next tier is? How much it is?
I'll have it in a minute. I believe it's about $2,500 or $3,000.
Right, so it's not a ton, and that kind of, because remember the Economic Development Committee for Germantown used up a bunch of their hours at the beginning of this year. So if we only use 66 to date, that would still allow room for 2025. It would keep us right where we're at. So we're not spending money for hours that we are not using. I understand that they can roll over, and I'm sure there will be extra hours that can roll over.
Saving any money,
By going down a tier?
because you're moving it to another area.
Yeah, it's not saving money, but it's allocating it differently.
Difference. You know, for $20,000 for what we get for fireworks, I don't know how you could get $25,000 more shot off.
Maybe it's not more fireworks, but for the 4th of July festivities, maybe we get something extra. Maybe we get a little bit better parade. Maybe we have more things in the park. Maybe we have more things to give out.
Anybody to be in the parade, we ask people to volunteer their groups for the parade. So those things have been happening for years, and the groups that come are come every year. It's hard to recruit for more people in a parade unless you're going to pay for people to be in there of some kind. Some groups do come. If you go to Menominee Falls, they have some paid parade, I would call them exhibits or performers within their parade, but they do pay them to be there.
May I speak?
Having discussion, yes.
Well, like you cut me off and I was waiting for you to finish.
Okay.
I think that there is an abundance of things that it could be used for the 4th of July festivities, besides paying people to perform in the parade. I know how hard it was and last minute it was for Park and Rec to take over the 4th of July planning. This gives the 4th of July festivities a little more cushion, a little more money, a little more give to make sure that the operations go as planned. Maybe they can expand in some area. I don't know. But I know it is one of the biggest events that Germantown has all year round. And it is looked forward to by so many people. And I would like to see that money allocated to that account to ensure that it continues. And it is a great festivity for all of Germantown.
Further discussion, trustee Jan Miller.
I think that's a good idea. There's also a band that plays at the festivities right before before the fireworks. And the bands are more and more expensive. And if you want to get a band that's a real good headliner, you have to pay a little bit more. And we've been lucky in getting sponsors, but you just never know. And I think it's a nice cushion. You could get better bouncy houses. There's lots of things. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with Trustee Peeper.
Do you want us to maybe even match it? If we had more money, possibly.
Recognized. Further discussion. Any further discussion? The only thing I would say is any shortness to the economic development of Washington County is short-sighted. You're going to take money, it's $2,500 for a group that helps this village in its additional business growth of not only capturing new business, but holding businesses here. To move $2,500 off of what they've already accomplished within the last year here to a one-day event is short-sighted. And it has no vision for what economic development occurs with the help of Washington County in this village. Further discussion, trustee Hudson.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about this unemotionally. And so if I'm understanding how EWDC works is these credits roll over from one year to the next. And so at some point in time, be it if we continue to use at the rate that we are using, we will have a large bank of unused credits with EWDC. And so
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize.
Is anything I've said incorrect at this point in time, please?
Yes.
Okay, well,
So there's actually two ways that we could do this with the credits. If we have, we could save them and allow them to roll over and accumulate, or we could basically reduce the amount that we're paying for the membership for next year.
okay, and so that is certainly exactly what I meant or said. And so we have, and I'm just going to use round numbers because it makes the math easy.
Okay.
If we have 20 hours at the end of this year, those 20 hours roll into next year, correct?
That's one option.
Okay. And if we stay at the same level we are next year as we did this year, that gives us a bank of 120 hours next year, right?
If you take that option, yes.
Or I think the option trustee Pieper is suggesting is that we take the 34 credits from this year and we fund 66 credits next year, and we are at 100 credits for next year. So our annual usage from 24 to 25 stays the same.
I think, well, I think that's, the way that I understood trustee Pieper's motion was to go, we are currently at what's called the leader level, where
Yes.
we purchased 60 credit hours for roughly $10,500, about $175 per credit. I believe trustee Pieper's motion was to go down to the competitor level, which is 40 credit hours at a cost of about $7,215.
But in addition to that, it would carry over the credits from this year.
So if we have hours left over at the end of this year, what we could do is either carry those over and add those to either the 40 or the 60, whatever level the board decides to stay at. Or we could apply those credits. So at the $175 per credit towards the payment for next year's subscription.
Yes, and I understand that. Aren't you saying exactly the same thing that trustee Pieper is?
I think we could, I think we could do take two different approaches and end up in basically the same place.
So okay, so I guess all of that being said, and again, looking for an unemotional response, what is the argument for funding EWDC at the same level next year that we have at this year if we haven't used all of our credits this year? If we do that, aren't we then assuming that our usage next year is going to go up? And if it is, that's fine.
Good.
I would just like to hear the explanation and the logic behind that.
I think, in my opinion, you could transfer $2,500 from the line that trustee Pieper was suggesting to the 4th of July and maintain the leader level subscription. And
Which I think is, and I don't want to put words in trustee Pieper's mouth. That's never a good idea. But I think that was her intent.
Further discussion, trustee Rick Miller.
We're only 3/4 of the year, so we've got October, November, December yet, to use those credits, right? Well, Christian didn't have October on this slide. So what we've utilized was not, and he said it wasn't actually accurate, there's more. I would recommend that we keep it at $10,000 in this budget. We can always review it, find out where we are and what it's gonna cost us next year for this, and then move it to the 4th of July at that point, because we don't know right now until we have actual numbers by the end of the year. It doesn't need to be moved now. We can move it later.
Am I allowed to revise my motion? Am I allowed to speak to do that?
You're still in the middle of a motion with discussion.
Can I revise my
I'm
motion?
going to recognize trustee Cutts first, because she's had her hand raised in regards to the motion as it currently is.
I had a question and then a comment. If we switched levels, what do we lose?
The most significant thing is the number of hours that we have available to us. And it is also possible under this new subscription model to purchase additional hours during the year if they're necessary. And I am I am trying to see. Oh, one other thing as I'm going through these slides, another point that was in the slides presented yesterday, that in order to use the rollover for a discount, we have to remain at the same level or higher. So if we could not do both, we could not go down to the lower level and apply the unused hours for a credit to the subscription fee.
And then my comment is, we still have 130,000 surplus, which we could dictate some of that to the 4th of July when we get to that point.
That's correct. 136,000, correct.
Can I revise my motion now?
You can make a amendment if you'd like.
But if it's okay with my second, I can revise it, can't I?
I'd rather have an amendment because we've already had discussion on the motion as it was. But if you want to amend your motion, you can.
Fine, I make a motion to amend any extra credits that are not used for 2024. I would like whatever that refund to be, if we're at the same level with EDWC, to be put into the 4th of July festivities account. Now, do you understand why I wanted to revise my motion?
We need a second on the motion to amend.
Well, it's, yes, I made a motion to amend, because now I'm not asking EDWC to lower our plan level. We'll keep our plan level the same. But if we don't utilize all of those hours by the end of the year, we get a credit. And I want that credit to be reflected in the 4th of July budget.
And and review what the actual usage is at the end of the year is.
Yes, yes.
That's part of it.
Exactly.
Credit to purchase the same level, and let's say the difference is $2,500. It's gonna be more, but let's say it is. Are you applying that to the 4th of July?
Yes.
Or are you waiting until you pay the $10,000 and see what remains in credits for 2025, and you're giving that remainder in dollar value to the 4th of July?
Didn't you just say the same thing in two different ways?
Because one, you're still paying $10,000 towards to get
Oh,
that same level, and then
EDWC,
you would have
sure.
additional credits.
Yes. No, I don't want the additional credits. I want to cash in those additional credits that are unused for 2024. Take that credit amount, because didn't EDWC say that whatever credits are not used, you can use it against your payment?
Right. is
So
that the
that's going to
same level?
lower that budget line item, and I would like the difference to go into the 4th of July.
Okay, we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded, motion to amend. Discussion on the motion to amend. Trustee Baum.
Doing a lot of gymnastics to move money around instead of just holding off on this, leaving it as is, making decisions at a later date on this. And let's look at the $136,000. If we want more money to go to the fireworks, we take it out of there. I wouldn't change this at all for now.
Further discussion on the motion to amend.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Is the motion to move funds, budget funds tonight and reflect that in the 2025?
No, it would have to be done at the end of the year, because we're not even quite sure how many hours we're going to use. We're not even quite sure if there's going to be a credit.
Okay, so if I'm understanding correctly, it's to leave it the way it is now. If at the end of the year there's credits, we'll have to do a budget amendment to move
Correct.
those funds. So they'll still have to go through the budget amendment process.
Yes.
But
That's a public hearing?
not to amend the budget. No.
Okay.
But it is 2/3 or 3/4 vote. I can't remember which off the top of my head.
Some may, what do you call it?
Super majority.
Supermajority.
I think it's 2/3.
Further discussion on the motion to.
For the amendment that would be potentially
Yeah.
upcoming, not this one.
Further discussion on the motion to amend. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Aye. Opposed, raise your hands. Motion failed. Motion
At
to
4 to
amend
4.
fails. Back to the motion as originally stated. Further discussion?
I withdraw my motion.
Further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Can we repeat the original?
Motion is back to, only contributing.
That's why it should have been revised and not amended.
But Maddie, do you have the original?
The original one was to make a motion to remove the expense line and move it to the July 4th. The second one was to lower the EDWC usage to the next lower tier so that that difference.
But then
can
it
go to
was
the 4th of
amended to the
July.
amended motion, so we
Which
just
failed.
voted on it.
Oh, so it's the original motion is before the board right now.
Okay. Further discussion?
Yeah.
All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Aye. Opposed, raise your hands. Motion passes.
Motion.
It fails, I'm sorry. Anything else for municipal development?
President Walter?
Yes.
Just one thing that I did want to mention on this, that is a work in progress at this point. We are working on some changes on the 4th of July. Transitioning, I believe the arrangement with the Park and Rec playing a larger role is going to be continued in 2025. And I am trying to schedule a meeting of the Tourism Commission. The Tourism Commission did make some contributions to the 4th of July, both for the 2023 celebration and the 2024 celebration. And since the village as an entity is going to play a larger role, I'd like to try to get that approved by the Tourism Commission in advance of the adoption of the budget so that there is adequate money set aside and planned for the 4th of July celebrations, that we have that in place.
To add more money to that type of expenses like bands and fireworks and or
Correct.
whatnot? or
Correct.
Bouncy houses or rides or whatever is chosen.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, why didn't you say that before?
Well, because the motion that was on the table was related to economic development, Washington County.
And related to the 4th of July expenditures. It's, okay, it's neither here.
Anything else from municipal development? If not, that takes care of all items under new business. Our next meeting date is October 15th at 6 PM here at the Village Hall Boardroom. So thank you all for coming tonight and thank you all for watching and have a good night. We are adjourned. Thank you, Matthew. Nice job.